One of the fundamental underpinnings of social psychology is that human behaviour is often best understood not through personality traits and individual differences, but through the influence of group dynamics. Social psychologists have shown that groups we belong to and identify with have a significant impact on how we think and behave. A prime example of this point is the enduring issue of prejudice and discrimination, which has plagued human interaction throughout history and continues to do so today.
In general, humans naturally tend to favour their own groups, often viewing outgroups that we don't belong to negatively as a result. This inclination to identify with and prefer our own social groups over others has potentially multiple underlying causes. Evolutionary psychologists argue that this tendency stems from our ancestors who depended on their group for food, shelter and safety, leading to a fundamental need to belong, but also a distrust of outsiders. Other psychologists propose that viewing the world through groups reduces uncertainty, as groups offer simplified representations of the social reality and predictions about others' behaviour. Further still, some psychologists argue that since groups become part of our identity, we seek to view them favourably compared to others to enhance our self-esteem. Regardless of the precise underlying causes for our attachment and identification to groups, the problem is that these psychological processes can fan the flames of prejudices such as ageism, racism, and sexism. These processes are explored in a humorous manner in the classic Friends episode entitled "The One with Phoebe's Uterus." In this episode, close friends Ross and Joey find themselves working in the same museum, but it soon emerges on different sides of a divide between two types of employee.
Would you mind sitting there? I'm saving the seat for my friend Ross.
You mean Dr. Geller?
Doctor? Oh, I didn't know he had a nickname.
Oh, he won't sit here. Only the people in the white coats sit over there. And only the people in the blue blazers sit over here.
In this first clip from the episode, we see the power of groups to determine both attitudes and behaviour. Despite the strong ties of friendship between Joey and Ross, in the museum setting, these are overruled by the group identities associated with their different job roles.
Over here, man. I saved you a seat.
That's okay. I'm cool over here. I'll catch up with you later, Joey.
Oh, this is saved. Gift shop.
This mirrors the arguments of well-known social psychologists Henri Tajfel and John Turner, who argued that in certain contexts, our group affiliations can become salient, providing us with a strong sense of a social identity. This can lead us to viewing ourselves and others through the lens of these groups, driving us to be good group members and adhere to group norms. When Rhonda tells Joey that scientists sit separately from tour guides in the canteen, she introduces him to the norms of his new group. Meanwhile, Ross instinctively sits with the other scientists, despite Joey saving him a seat, demonstrating how group identity can sometimes overshadow even close personal relationships. The white lab coats and blue blazers visually reinforce these different social identities. Psychologists such as Philip Zimbardo have shown that uniforms can be a powerful way to instill a sense of a common group identity and change behaviour.
Later in the episode, the show tackles the issue of whether there are ways to break down the divisions created by group rivalries.
Now, I look around this cafeteria and you know what I see? I see division. Division between people in white coats and people in blue blazers. And I ask myself, my God, why? Now, I say we shed these coats that separate us. And we get to know the people underneath.
It seems evident that the writers use the divisions between the scientists and tour guides as a metaphor for societal prejudice and discrimination. In the clip, these divisions are overcome when individual confessions enable employees to connect on a personal level, reducing group boundaries. While the episode depicts this as an effective strategy for reducing group division, does this approach hold up when we examine the psychological empirical evidence on prejudice reduction? Research widely supports the idea that positive contact between groups can reduce prejudice. However, a major debate in the field is whether it's more effective to encourage people to stop viewing others as group members and instead see them as unique individuals, an approach known as decategorization. We see this strategy in practice in the episode as staff members share embarrassing stories, presumably helping them connect as individuals rather than seeing each other through the group lens. A possible issue with this approach is that decategorizing individuals might prevent positive feelings from extending to other group members. For instance, in 1950s West Virginia, USA, miners of different ethnicities worked well together underground, but once they finished work, they lived racially segregated lives and held racist attitudes. In the episode, we don't see whether attitudes towards all of the scientists and tour guides are made more positive as a result of the personal confessions, only that the personal friendship between Joey and Ross is restored. Other psychologists argue that for positive attitudes to generalize after encounters between different groups, people should not be encouraged to see everyone merely as unique individuals and ignore their group memberships. Instead, it is crucial to remember the broader group these individuals represent, ensuring that positive contact extends and generalizes to other group members. This perspective, as suggested by the mutual intergroup differentiation model, contrasts with Ross's impassioned plea for scientists and tour guides to remove their white lab coats and blue blazers to get to know the people underneath. Euston and Brown would argue that we should get to know people but remember the blue blazers and white lab coats too.
While Ross and Joey easily eschew their group memberships by removing their white lab coat and blue blazer, instead focusing on their personal relationship, it's much more challenging for people in wider society to disregard aspects of their background, such as nationality or ethnicity. These group memberships are often important for individuals, as they provide a sense of a shared identity and self-esteem. It is both naive and potentially unwise to encourage abandonment of these identities. Instead, society might better benefit from aiming to help people from different groups to feel good about their groups, in a way that doesn't foster prejudice towards others, and furthermore encourages finding common ground that could lead to recategorization and a sense of a shared common identity that can reduce an us versus them mentality. In the Friends example, the conflict between scientists and tour guides could be lessened if staff focused on their shared identity as employees of the same museum. This ability as human beings to transcend our lower level identities and focus on a shared humanity may be one important way in which we can go about reducing prejudice, but also may be increasingly important as we attempt to face global challenges ahead of us, such as climate change.
Now, I look around this cafeteria and you know what I see? I see division. Division between people in white coats and people in blue blazers. And I ask myself, my God, why?